All right, let's talk some five-star buzz. We are 3 weeks into the college football season, but we are over halfway done with the recruiting cycle, and we know that these games have impacts. Visits happen, minds get shifted, recruitments change, so let's get into it. Let's start at the top. Cornerback DJ Pickett, the five-star from Zephyr Hills, Florida. He's made a couple visits this fall, but he's committed to LSU. Sounds solid, but DJ Pickett, what's going on with this recruitment?
Well, his family says they're 1,000% committed to LSU, and they don't want to be one of those prospects that ends up reopening, decommitting, flipping. But certainly Miami is still in the thick of that one. He was at Miami's win over Florida. Then he returned then he got back to Coral Gables the next Saturday for Miami's home opener with his mom, expected to return with his dad for the Florida State game. So Miami giving him a lot to think about. Mario Cristobal leading the charge in that recruitment. Number one player in the state, number one corner in the land, most coveted player on Miami's board. We've seen them get big flips every year. Cristobal's been there. They have their eye on DJ Pickett. Pickett's going to be back at LSU this weekend, as we previously reported, for the UCLA game. He's looking forward to returning for a couple more big home games, Oklahoma and Alabama. So LSU, 3 visits in the cards, but Miami battling to change the pulse of that recruitment.
All right, five-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin. He was a notable no-show this weekend. What does it mean for his recruitment?
Well, we love the way this continues to set up for Georgia. Look, Elijah Griffin's had great, authentic relationships with USC and Miami, but Georgia's always going to be hard to beat in this one. He's taking an official visit for his birthday. The weekend they host Mississippi State, and I wouldn't be surprised if this process is coming to a close and he's not in the fold shortly after, or maybe even during that trip to Athens.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. Interior offensive lineman Michael Carroll, the five-star, is committed to Alabama. He made that commitment in June, and now he's taken a couple visits. He's gone to see Florida. He's also gone to see Miami. What do you make of Michael Carroll's recruitment?
I think he's going to end up sticking with Alabama. He was also at that Florida game at Miami this past weekend, but talking to his family this morning, I think it's going to be extremely tough for anyone to flip him from Alabama. He may also take a visit out to USC, which he's already been upfront with Alabama about, just to tickle that West Coast excitement, get out there, see a game, fully go through this recruiting process. He's obviously talked about NIL being a factor. I think that after this weekend's visit to Miami and just conversations that he's had with the Alabama staff since that visit popped up, I think he's seen some exciting potential at Alabama, being an offensive lineman, playing for them in that arena as well. So again, I think Alabama, I think Michael Carroll is pretty locked in with the Crimson Tide.
All right, five-star corner Naeem Alford. He's the number one ranked player in the state of Alabama, but he made an early commitment to the Ohio State Buckeyes. But now as we get closer to signing day, it looks like those in-state opportunities are looking a little bit more attractive to him.
Yeah, there's no question that Auburn's gaining momentum in this recruitment. They had him at Big Cat Weekend. They've already had him for one game. He's expected to be back on campus at the end of the month when Auburn hosts Oklahoma. But he also still remains excited about his potential future at Ohio State, looking at maybe the Iowa or Nebraska game return in Columbus, and then Oregon getting back out there for the game against the Buckeyes. So Dan Lanning's doing a great job in that recruitment. Certainly Tim Walton at Ohio State, Auburn doing all they can to keep him home, and dialogue remains with LSU and Alabama as well.
All right, five-star offensive tackle Andrew Babalola is the only remaining uncommitted five-star offensive tackle in the country, and his recruitment has been a bit of a mystery. Steve, what do you make of it?
Still having regular great conversation with the coaching staffs at Auburn, Michigan, and Oklahoma. Stanford was considered the favorite going into the summer official visits. I think he's got some family that would love to see him in Palo Alto. Missouri's rounding out the top 5. He wanted to decide before his senior season, but now that he hasn't, maybe he goes out and checks out some games. You know, he has been inside most of these stadiums for his finalists. He has not been on the plains for a game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn plays Oklahoma. Those are two of his favorites at the end of the month.
Yeah.
We'll see if he attends a game like that before making his college decision. I just know it seems like he's maybe at times felt like he knows what he's going to do, but hasn't been able to completely pull the trigger as of yet. So as this recruitment tightens, maybe he goes and checks out this Auburn-Oklahoma game in a couple weekends. Maybe he ends up elsewhere on a campus for a game day as well.
That would be a major development if he ended up out on the plains for a game. All right, 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. He's been trending heavily to Georgia since his decommitment from USC. Well, actually, he was committed to Georgia at one point, too. So is Georgia the front runner here?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's trending for this recruitment to come full circle. But Alabama trying to change that narrative. They've already had him on campus for one game this year. They've gotten him in for an official visit. Now he's expected back for the Georgia game later on. And games generally don't mean much in recruitments, but as Alabama tries to make up ground on Georgia, Freddie Roach leading the charge there. A win on Saturday in front of Justice Terry over Georgia. Maybe that helps continue to move the needle in their favor. But right now, Georgia still looks like they're going to be tough to beat for Justice Terry.
All right. Wide receiver Dallas Wilson, the 5-star out of Tampa, Florida, has been committed to the Oregon Ducks for almost a year and a half at this point. Now, Dallas Wilson also talking to a couple schools. What do you make of his recruitment?
Josh, my first day at On3, April 1, we shot a bunch of videos inside the On3 studios, and Dallas Wilson was one of the prospects we talked about, and you asked me if he was a stick or flip back then, and I said stick. Nothing has changed in the regard of the vigor that some of these other programs have continued to recruit him, from Florida to Miami to Texas. He was supposed to be at a Florida game, didn't make it. Supposed to be at a Miami game, didn't make it. Look, Oregon's going to have their hands full keeping him, but they are up for all battles and all comers right now. This is a young man that they covet. So right now I'm still in the stick camp, but we got time to see if I change my mind as this process continues.
All right, another one in kind of the same lane as Dallas Wilson. Wide receiver Caleb Cunningham, while committed to Alabama, he still has made a trip to Ole Miss. I think he'll probably make a trip to Auburn at some point if he hasn't already. But what about Caleb Cunningham's recruitment? What do you make of it?
Yeah, working this one with our colleague Chad Simmons. Ole Miss is definitely a program to watch as he continues through his process. And he was back at Alabama recently and committed to them shortly after his official visit at the end of the summer. And I could definitely see him sticking with Jamarcus Shepard, Kalen DeBoer, and Alabama. But Ole Miss, they still have their official visit in play. They still got some game visits down the road this season that could be some big opportunities to get him back on campus. So I don't think we're done seeing him in Oxford for games. Auburn, if they land Deuce Knight, does that help them gain another inch in the recruitment of Caleb Cunningham? The dialogue hasn't stopped there as well. So he continues to work through his process. We don't expect any final answers with him till December.
All right, let's stay in the state of Mississippi. Quarterback Deuce Knight, he's been on flip watch since he left Big Cat Weekend at the end of July. Deuce Knight and Auburn have been an item, but there's rumors that maybe he's going to get back to Notre Dame. What do you think about Deuce Knight and a potential flip to Auburn?
Well, it'll be interesting to see where he goes at the end of the month, Josh. Auburn looking to line up his official visit that weekend against Oklahoma. And then Notre Dame, they play one of their biggest home games of the season against Louisville, and they're trying to get top targets and commits back for that one. So it could be telling where he visits that weekend, which program completely has all the momentum. I still like my on-3 RPM for Auburn. I still wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss makes another run as well. He did visit them recently in the in-state program. They're pushing for Deuce Knight too.
Man, I thought that one would be over by now, but it still drags on. All right, wide receiver Jerome Miles, speaking about getting this one over with soon, it's going to come to an end. His recruitment, with one of the only remaining top 10 wide receivers in America, will make his decision on Wednesday. Steve, preview this for us.
Well, I like where USC stands. I logged an on-3 RPM in favor of the Trojans the Sunday after his official visit nearly 2 weekends ago. And when he moved up his commitment date, I felt even better about that decision. The Trojans putting together a sneaky good receiver class with guys like Romero Ison and Corey Sims already in the fold. If they can land the explosive 6'3" Jerome Miles to the fold, be one of the more dynamic pass catching groups in the country. They're still trying to flip Dalen McCutcheon from Florida State as well, but Jerome Miles committing on Wednesday, and I like where USC stands going into that one.
All right, now let's stay with USC. Julian Lewis, the quarterback commitment from Carrollton, Georgia. I'll make this one real easy for you, Steve. Stick or flip?
I'm still in the stick camp. Scott Schrader, our colleague, reporting that he will be back at USC for the Wisconsin game. Indiana was trying to get him in town for the Maryland game that weekend. Look, Julian Lewis is still having dialogue. Him and his family are still talking to Auburn. They're still talking to Colorado. They're still talking to Indiana. So we'll see what happens. But my intel favors him sticking with the Trojans. He's going to get back to campus. USC recruiting at a high level on defense is a big factor for him. He's got to love the way they're recruiting wideouts and tailbacks. And they have a young offensive line that Lincoln Riley and company are very excited about. Julian Lewis always been their top target. I think he loves USC and the idea of playing for Riley. But they haven't completely shut this thing down behind the scenes. So we'll see what happens moving forward.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the number one athlete in America, 5-star Michael Terry III. He was at Texas this weekend. He's been to Nebraska. What do you make of his recruitment right now?
Well, I still like where Texas stands. Look, he had a great experience at Nebraska 2 weekends ago for the win over Colorado, sat in the front row, got around a lot of Nebraska's commits and top targets. That coaching staff he's really vibed with and truly believes that Nebraska is going to turn this thing around and win at a high level. But Texas, close to home, been there several times, always says it's a great experience. Texas wanted to get him back for this weekend against UTSA, where it was a little lesser of a weekend on the trail where he could get more time with the players on the team, more time with the staff, more time discussing his potential future, playing in a variety of ways in that Steve Sarkisian, AJ Milwee offense. He's going to come back for the Georgia game, which is going to be ramped up with blue chip recruits and a heck of an atmosphere. Oregon could get a return visit for the Ohio State game as well. So not exactly sure on a timetable, but still like my on-3 RPM in favor of Texas.
I agree with you there. Now, interior offensive lineman Solomon Thomas is committed to Florida State, but even before Florida State got off to this 0-3 start, you were hearing rumors that LSU was heavily involved, the Gators, Miami wanted to get involved in this recruitment, but now Solomon Thomas might have some options with Florida State's 0-3 start. What are you hearing on the Florida State commitment?
Well, it's been a little bit since I've talked to Solomon Thomas, but the one thing that we know for sure is that LSU is never going to give up. Offensive line is always one of the most important positions that a Brian Kelly staff attacks on the trail. They've recruited some of the best offensive line classes in the country year in and year out. And Solomon Thomas likes the way that they've developed those guys in Baton Rouge, likes the way that those are their team leaders at the point of attack and just the whole locker room. And there was times this summer where I thought he was close to flipping to LSU, but Florida State was able to put that to rest with their late summer visit. But LSU going to make another charge, and we'll see how it continues to play out.
All right,
Miami's going to swing there too, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And now edge Javian Hilson. He was committed to Florida State, decommitted, was expected to show at UF this weekend, did not. So what's up next for his recruitment now that he's back on the market?
Well, our colleague Hayes Fawcett reported 7 schools still being in the mix there. One school that I think is a dark horse is UCF, but I still like my on-3 RPM in favor of Texas for Javian Hilson. But this is a recruitment where he's talking about taking it to December, but he has had pop-up commitments to Alabama and Florida State. It's this recruitment has turned on a dime several times. I feel good about the Longhorns right now. We'll see how it continues to play out. There was another recruitment that turned on a dime a few times this cycle, and Jamie French from Alabama to Ohio State, LSU, and Miami in there, but Texas won out for him, and I think they're ultimately going to win out for Javian Hilson as well.
Yeah, and Javian Hilson was a one-time Alabama commitment as well, so he is not afraid to make a commitment. Cornerback Ben Hanks, he's another one that the Sharks are circling. He's committed to UF. He's a legacy prospect, so the Gators do have that going for them. But it was a tight decision between UF and Miami when he originally decided about a month or two ago. So what's Ben Hanks thinking right now?
Well, I think Miami's viewed him as a long game type recruitment all the way. I think they knew it was going to be tough sledding against Florida coming into the season, but it's like, let's play this out. We open up the year in Gainesville. Let's take care of business there. Then let's play well and let's see what happens at Florida. I think we can all agree it couldn't be turning out better for Miami right now. It's early in the campaign, so we'll see how it continues to go. But from the long game approach, the things are happening that Miami wanted to put them in the thick of this one. His twin sister's a volleyball player. They want to go to the same school. She wants to play volleyball, so that is a factor, and they've had those discussions with these programs as well.
All right, Georgia Tech got in on offensive tackle Damola Ajitahun early and got him committed, but now the big dogs are calling. Who is involved in this recruitment right now?
Well, I thought he was going to commit to Georgia in the summer, and then around the time of the Kirby Smart scavenger hunt, things started to go away from Georgia and pick up with Georgia Tech, but the Bulldogs have circled back hard. He remains a priority for them. And I kind of like the way that's starting to pick up for them. That doesn't discount the fact that I think Brent Key and company can hold them. But there's no question Georgia is picking up steam with him. And South Carolina and Ohio State are a couple others to maybe keep an eye on.
All right, wide receiver C.J. Wiley committed to Florida State during the summer, but when at the time of his commitment, it really shocked the recruiting industry because most experts, not just at On3, but most experts expected LSU or maybe Georgia, but C.J. Wiley committed to FSU, and now he's still continuing to talk to LSU and Georgia. What do you make of this recruitment?
Yeah, I did not put in an on 3 RPM for C.J. Wiley leading up to his decision because I thought it could go a couple different ways. Wasn't quite sure how it was going to play out. And I think you still get that sense here during the season. He's saying the right things about his verbal to Florida State. And I think he loves Coach Dugan's, Coach Norvell, and that staff and the idea of playing for them and some of the wideouts that he's put out and some of the exciting offenses. Georgia has never gone away. James Coley and company pushing hard. LSU legacy. Both his parents played sports at LSU with his dad playing football. And then Auburn, they continue to lurk for C.J. Wiley as well. Chad Simmons was recently out to see C.J. Wiley. Has a good story on the On3 network there. But all those programs still in the mix, still in communication with one of the more exciting pass catchers in the 2025 class.
All right, last prospect we got to hit on is running back Ousmane Kromah. He left Auburn and said, I'm ready to commit. No, not yesterday, but he left Auburn saying, I'm ready to commit on September 28th. So we are less than 2 weeks away from his announcement. Ousmane Kromah visited Georgia earlier this season, visited Auburn. What do you make of his recruitment?
Well, the On3 RPM is on Auburn right now for Kromah. Love them coming out of his visit there a couple weeks ago. And then he got to Georgia. Chad Simmons and I both hearing that Georgia turning it up a notch, which certainly makes you factor them in strongly. Even with him coming back to Auburn this past weekend, it's hard to ignore a late charge with Georgia. So, again, my prediction is on Auburn as they push for the nation's #1 class, sitting at number 5. But the Bulldogs could get this one done as well.
All right, let us know. Comment section below. How do you feel about these latest developments on some of the top recruits in America? Let us know. Comment section below.